All right, everyone, welcome. So, have you ever had that moment where your Python code just zips along on your machine, but then it crawls on a different one? Or maybe you've wondered how to build apps that are actually secure and can handle real traffic? If so, you're in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to look past the syntax. We're going to go underneath the hood at the systems our code actually runs on. This is what takes you from just writing scripts to really engineering robust software.
And this quote really says it all. This is the big idea for today. See, your code is in this constant conversation with the operating system, the network, the hardware, everything. And understanding that conversation, that's what really separates a good programmer from a great one.
Now, a quick heads up on how this all came together. I did use some AI tools to help structure and clarify these ideas, but I want to be super clear. Every single point, every example you're about to see was curated and double-checked by a human, me. This is quality, actionable stuff, not just some AI slop.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to tackle this in 4 main parts. First up, we'll cover the basics of system administration, how to get control of our environment. Then, we're diving into the deep end with concurrency and the infamous GIL. After that, we'll get grounded in how our code interacts with the file system. And finally, we'll wrap up with the networking concepts that let our apps talk to the world.
Okay, let's jump right into section 1. This is all about getting comfortable with the world your code lives in and learning how to actually manage it. These are kind of the 4 pillars of taking control. You've got to be able to see what's running, keep an eye on your system's health, change your app's configuration without touching the code, and of course, keep everything locked down and secure. You should think of these less as boring admin tasks and more as crucial developer skills for building apps you can rely on.
And check this out. Here's a perfect example of how easy this can be. With just a handful of lines of Python and this great library psutil, you can get real-time info on your CPU and memory. I mean, this is incredibly powerful when you're trying to hunt down performance bottlenecks in your own applications.
And here's another critical practice, managing your configuration. Hard-coding things like API keys directly into your code is a huge no-no. Instead, you pull them from the environment. Why? Well, because it makes your application way more secure and so much easier to deploy across different environments, from your laptop to testing to the real-world production servers.
All right, on to our second topic, concurrency. So we've seen how to watch our system. Now let's dig into how Python actually juggles multiple tasks inside that system. Getting your head around this is absolutely key for writing high-performance code.
Okay, first things first, we need to understand this distinction because it's fundamental. Think of a process like a house. It's got its own address, its own resources, its own memory. A thread is like a person living inside that house. They share all those resources with other people or other threads in that same house.
And let's clear up another super common point of confusion. Concurrency is about structuring your code to handle lots of things at once. It's like one chef in a kitchen, frantically switching between chopping vegetables and stirring a sauce. Parallelism, on the other hand, is about actually doing many things at the exact same time. That requires multiple chefs, or for us, multiple CPU cores.
This is the million-dollar question for so many Python developers, right? You add more threads, you run your code on a beast of a machine with tons of cores, and nothing. The speed doesn't budge. So what gives?
The answer, the culprit, is something called the Global Interpreter Lock, or the GIL. It's a fundamental piece of CPython, which is the version of Python we all use, and it basically enforces a strict rule, one thread at a time. It was originally designed to make memory management way simpler and safer, but it creates this massive bottleneck for certain kinds of work.
And the impact of the GIL completely depends on what your code is actually doing. For what we call I/O-bound tasks, think waiting for a website to respond or a file to load from a slow disk, the GIL actually gets released during that wait time, which lets another thread take over. But for CPU-bound tasks, we're talking heavy-duty math, intense calculations. The GIL becomes a brick wall. It just stops true parallelism in its tracks.
So what's really great about this slide is that it gives you a clear playbook. If your task is mostly just waiting around for I/O, you use the threading module to get that nice concurrent feel. But if you're hitting that GIL wall with some heavy computation, you have to use the multiprocessing module to spin up separate processes and get real, honest-to-goodness parallelism.
All right, moving on to section 3, the file system. Pretty much every single application out there needs to read or write files, and just having a solid mental model of how this works is going to save you from a world of bugs and headaches.
Knowing the difference here is absolutely key. An absolute path is the full, unambiguous address, starting all the way from the root of the file system. A relative path is shorter, it's more portable, but it totally depends on where your script is being run from. And this, right here, is such a common cause of those frustrating file not found errors.
And this is exactly why you should always use the with statement when you're working with files. Think of it as a safety net. It absolutely guarantees that the file handle, that connection to the file, is properly closed and given back to the operating system no matter what happens, even if your code crashes. It's just the non-negotiable professional way to do it.
Okay, and for our final section, let's connect our application to the outside world. I mean, modern apps almost never live in a bubble. They're constantly talking over a network. We really need to understand the basics of how that communication actually happens.
These are the absolute building blocks. The IP address and the port number, you can think of that like a street address and an apartment number for a specific application running on a server. The client-server model just defines who kicks off the conversation, DNS turns names into addresses, and HTTP is basically the language they all speak.
And DNS? Well, DNS is the magic that makes the whole internet usable for us humans. It is, quite literally, the internet's phone book. Without it, you would have to memorize a long string of numbers for every single website you wanted to visit. It's this critical, massive piece of global infrastructure that's just working silently in the background all the time.
So let's bring this all home. Learning about system administration, concurrency, file systems, and networking, this isn't just extra credit. This is the foundational stuff. It's the knowledge that truly builds the bridge from writing simple scripts to engineering complex, effective, and robust software solutions.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about in your own work. Mastering these underlying systems is what gives you the power to confidently say that you are, in fact, engineering software. Thanks for your time.